My name is Sean Salahi, and I've developed a lesson plan that uses a spectrum of fifths and allows the students to improve their performance ability using the self-reflection process. The lesson is entitled The Tempest Self-Reflection. The objectives are: 1. Students will learn how to self-reflect using a standardized reflection form. 2. Students will learn how to apply the spectrum of fifths to their individual parts and describe how the spectrum will better their understanding of the piece. The California State Standard that is used for this lesson is Analyze and Critically Assess. 4.1 reads, Develop specific criteria for making informed critical evaluations of the quality and effectiveness of performances, and it goes on with compositions and so on. However, this lesson plan mainly focuses on performances, the performance aspect of a band class. And those students will learn how to apply the lessons learned in this lesson to those criteria in personal participation in music classes. Materials. 1. Individual sheet music of The Tempest. 2. A pen or a pencil. I've noticed that most music directors require students or prefer students to use pencils. 3. Recording of a model performance of The Tempest. 4. Recording of a recent student performance of The Tempest. 5. A means to play the recording for the students, such as a CD player. Procedures for the lesson plan are: 1. Have students set up in their concert arts without their instruments. 2. Have students listen to the model recording of The Tempest. 3. Students will then listen to the performance of The Tempest. 4. Students will then self-reflect using the standardized self-reflection form. Students will need a pen or pencil for this exercise. 5. Collect forms if time allows and excuse the students at the end of class. I have also developed a self-reflection standardized form, which is entitled Self-Reflection. On the top right-hand corner of the form, students are required to write their name, the date of the reflection, and the class they currently attend. On the lower left-hand section of the form reads Music. The students will then write which music selection they are evaluating for the day. They will write their instrument or instruments they play on the piece. They will also write which part they play, such as trumpet 1, 2, or 3. Students will then rate their performance using the following categories. 1. Note accuracy. 2. Rhythmic accuracy. 3. Dynamic contrast. 4. Individual timbre. 5. Intonation. And 6. Appropriate articulation. If you noticed, the students are required or are being asked to rate their performance using the following rubric. 1. Below proficient. 2. Proficient. Or 3. Advanced. Okay, after they have finished filling out the standardized self-reflection form, students will be asked to evaluate their performance of the last 4 measures of The Tempest. Using the spectrum of fifths table attached to this form, answer the following questions regarding the last 4 measures of The Tempest. 1. What is the key or center pitch of the last 4 measures? 2. Are the last 4 measures dark or bright in nature? 3. Which pitches in music measure 78 are the most important? What instruments have these pitches? And 4. What happens during the last measure of the piece? What should you do as a performer during the last measure? Once the students answer those questions, they will self-reflect using the following prompt. In the space provided below, reflect on what you did right and what elements you can improve on. Alright, now that we've listened to the last 4 measures of the Tempest, you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, that went by pretty fast. Students will also be telling themselves that as well. Another thing to realize is the fact that the students at the middle school level, which this piece is mainly targeted to, will have little or no theory training. Now, with that being said, we can use the spectrum of fifths to help the students understand a clear picture of what's going on used in the last 4 measures of the Tempest without having to teach them in-depth music theory. Let's look at the spectrum of fifths chart that will be handed out to every student, which will also be attached to the self-reflection form. You'll notice at the top of the form of the chart, I've included the spectrum of fifths. To the left of the chart, you'll notice I've included the music measures. We have music measure 76 to the left, followed by 77, 78, and 79, which is the last measure of the piece. After the music measure, I've included the instrumentation. On the right side of the chart, here, you'll notice that I've highlighted G as the center pitch in blue. At the bottom of the chart, you'll also notice G in blue, which is indicated in a blue box, which tells the students or informs the students that G is the center pitch. Now, once we utilize this form, or we use this form, the students will be able to determine the center pitch on their own. As you can see in measure 76, we have a G here, which is the root of the chord, or the center pitch. We have the third here, and we also have some non-harmonic chord tones, A and C. C is the darkest note in the measure, in the spectrum, which is played in the measure. And we have B natural, which is the brightest pitch on the spectrum, which is played in this measure. We have the center pitch, which is reinforced with the baritone and trombone players. Also, it's being reinforced in the upper wind instruments in the flute, oboe, clarinet, trumpets, and horn parts. Going to measure 77. Here we have the composer, Robert W. Smith, giving us a sense of stability. We have the G being reinforced in the low wind instruments, such as the tuba, baritone, trombone, bari sax, clarinet, tenor sax instruments or players, and the G is also being reinforced in the clarinet, trumpets, flute, and oboe parts. Here, as you can see, the G is clearly our center pitch. Instruments here, such as the flutes, oboe, clarinets, and trumpets, are reinforcing the third and the fifth, which is B and D. As we can see, B natural, is our pitch that is farthest away from the center pitch. With that being said, B is the most important note besides our center pitch. With that being said, students should know that this B should be reinforced. And measure 78, the second to last measure from the end. Which is interesting to see here, the low wind instruments are not sustaining the center pitch, which would commonly be found in middle school instrumentation. However, they're sustaining different pitches we'll talk about in a moment. The only instruments that are sustaining the center pitch are the flute, oboes, clarinet, and trumpet players. We also have the upper wind instruments sustaining the B natural and the D, as mentioned before in measure 77. We also have a few non-harmonic chord tones. We have C again, which was played in the first measure, measure 76. And we also have E natural. Going on, we have an A flat and an F sharp. You'll see that these notes clearly represent our pitch class in this piece, or in the last 4 measures of the Tempest, with A flat being the darkest note, and F sharp being the brightest note. As you can see, both these pitches are pulling us towards the center pitch in the last measure, measure 79. With that being said, these notes that fall furthest from the center pitch should be reinforced the most, which is A flat and F sharp. G, which is only sustained in the upper wind instruments, is not as important. The last measure, 79, you'll see that everyone is sustaining the center pitch. Everyone's playing a G. Couple of things to think about here. One, when everyone plays the G, it's important to inform the students that they should play as an ensemble. For instance, we have flute, oboists, clarinets, and trumpet players trying their hardest here to give us a sense of stability by playing the G, which they're the only ones playing the G in this measure. Now, I'm sure these students are thinking, I really need to play this pitch out. I really need to provide that sense of stability. However, when they reach measure 79, if they're sustaining that same volume, and if everyone else sustains the same volume, and then the tone or the timbre will become jeopardized. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and listen to the music again, and let's remember the elements that I've talked about in this graph.